Shogun has brilliant characters, one after the other, with their storylines and motives each different than the other, which is one of the reasons why Shogun is this complex human drama we needed. When I was preparing for this video, I wrote down all the good characters I remembered from the show, and by good, I don't mean good-hearted, I mean well-written characters with good stories. I actually wrote down 15, realizing they all deserved a commentary. But for the purposes of this video, I managed to bring it down to 10 characters that I think are the best in Shogun. My credentials were many. Are they relatable? Did they have character development? Were their scenes impactful? Did they stand out? Were they enjoyable to watch? I can go on, but let's not do that. Here are the top 10 Shogun characters ranked. Number 10, Nagakado. Now, as lame and stupid Nagakado was, he always had good intentions, that's for sure. One thing that he wanted was to please his father, which is something that I'm sure many of us can relate to. I know I can. He wanted to be honorable like his father, but just didn't know how to achieve that as he was a bit naive and inexperienced due to his age. But even among all his flaws, there's one thing I cannot refuse. His actions and even his death helped Toranaga win the war. Nagakado killing Jozen made sure Ishido would have the next move. His death gave Toranaga the time to plan, act weak, and fool everyone into thinking that he was going to lose. Overall, Nagakado was a good character who was a lot more crucial to the story than we give him credit for. Number 9, Omi. This guy is smart and calculative, I give him that. He's almost like a young Toranaga, to be honest, and even Toranaga recognized his intelligence. If he didn't inflict all those ideas into Nagakado's head, Nagakado wouldn't do half of what he did. Also, Omi's betrayal of Yabushige helped Toranaga with his plan. Everyone in this story had their importance in Toranaga's plan, and Omi was more important than we realized. One thing I liked about him especially was how he seemed so genuinely sad after Nagakado's death. I didn't really think that was a front. Even though he can be a cold-blooded bastard, he has a good heart somewhere underneath all of that. Number 8, Buntaro. I had my doubts about this guy, well, first of all because he's a wife beater, but I realized some of the other members of this list can easily kill other people, so violence is not a good credential for this list. I have to admit, even when he did hit Mariko, he seemed remorseful and apologetic after. It was also obvious that he was in love with Mariko, but just didn't know how to show it properly, or he thought hitting her was the only way he could have some control over her. He was not the nicest person on the show, I know, but he was still a good fighter and a huge asset to Toranaga. More importantly, his coming to help John showed that he was okay with moving past everything that happened between them, which showed growth on his part. Number 7, Lady Ochiba. When I tell you, I have never seen a character who mesmerized me by the way they spoke. She was like a snake trying to bewitch the audience with her words. When she first appeared, she seemed so badass. Although that seemed to disappear when she married Ishido, she still showed her independent spirit and determination with her final decision not to help Ishido in the battle. She had a good heart and cared about her friendship with Mariko even though they hadn't seen each other for years. Her friendship and love even overcame her hatred for Toranaga, who she believed was behind her father's death. That showed strength on her part. Number 6, Hiromatsu. While watching Hiromatsu's first scenes, I was like, okay, he's an experienced, cool, general, solid character. But my opinion of him changed with 2 scenes. First, the way he cared for Fuji and gave her advice on choosing to live despite everything that happened. And second, his seppuku, which proved what a loyal friend and general he was to Toranaga. He was smart enough to understand what Toranaga had been planning without talking to him, and he was loyal enough to give his life if it meant his lord would become shogun. He did his part in Toranaga's plan, and I love him for it. Number 5, Fuji. I even thought about putting Fuji at number 1 because I love her that much, but after some thinking, I realized the number 5 spot is the right one for her. Fuji may not be mighty compared to the other characters, but she showed strength and resilience when needed, which counts a lot in my opinion. She had the perfect side eyes and incredible facial expressions, especially in her scenes with John. I also believe that she showed growth and had one of the best storylines. She came from wanting to die due to losing her husband and child, and she ended up accepting that death is not an answer and living is not that bad after all. She made her own choices and was helpful to John as well. And she was cute and I had a crush on her, that's it. Number 4, John Blackthorne. You might come at me for putting the protagonist at number 4, but I can explain. When John first arrived on the shores of Japan, he was blunt and abrasive. He easily expressed how he felt about anyone and anything. He was disrespectful towards the new culture he encountered, but his journey showed him forming a powerful bond with Toranaga, Mariko, and Fuji, and eventually opening up to the culture around him. Even though in the finale he still dreamed of leaving Japan, it was also obvious that he came to accept its culture for what it was and had a change of heart. His quickness to learn the Japanese language and customs, turning from a loud man into a calmer, more level-headed person, was a great journey, a journey I enjoyed watching. Number 3. Lady Mariko. The character of Lady Mariko could go wrong at a lot of times in the story. She could have been one of those female characters to be defined by their love. She could have changed her entire worldview after she encountered and fell in love with Blackthorn. But Mariko had her own set of beliefs that never really wavered or changed, no matter who she was against. Her cool and distant nature made her a mysterious character. Her strong sense of moral integrity, intellectual strength, and loyalty to her lord above everything just proved what a great character she was. And in the end, she was Crimson Sky. Her actions at Osaka Castle and her eventual death were the ones that turned the tide and made Toranaga win. Without her, Toranaga couldn't become Shogun, and without her, John couldn't have his transformation. In episode 10, Mariko's absence was felt a lot. She was everywhere and was remembered by everyone, which should tell you a lot about her impact. Number 2. Toranaga. This is the most controversial decision I have probably ever made. Toranaga is my number 2. I know he was the most intelligent guy to ever exist. I know he had the greatest wind studying techniques. I know he planned everything from the beginning, step by step, calculating every move, always being 2 steps ahead of his enemies. Some even call him the villain of the story because of how he sacrificed the important people around him, how he acted like he didn't want to become shogun, but it ended up being his dream of a dream. I personally think the fact that we're discussing whether this guy is someone good who works for the greater good of Japan or a villain who only thinks about himself shows that he's such a well-written character. He always leaves you hanging and makes you think why did he do what he did and makes you question people's motives. Toranaga is the brain of the story, and no matter how cruel he ended up being, he deserved to become shogun. But there is a better character. Number 1. Yabushige. Now, I don't regret this choice one bit. In every scene that this guy was in, I couldn't look elsewhere. I waited for every bit of his expressions, his lines, like my life was on the line. He's got so much character and steals every scene that he's in. He's relatable, he's funny, and this creates such a contrast to the generally serious tone of all the other characters. He's a complex and well-written figure. Despite his constant treachery, despite playing both sides of the conflict, he's the most enjoyable character to watch with his rare charisma. I think I found him refreshing in a place where everyone was hiding behind their eightfold fence, and Yabushige just wore his emotions on his sleeve and managed to be upfront. In the end, Yabushige doesn't really care about what he's saying or how he's saying it, and this makes him genuine and relatable. I would love to have a drink with him, and I'm sure that would be phenomenal. Do you agree with this list? Who is the best character in Shogun? Tell me in the comments below. Don't forget to like and share. Subscribe to next season for more. See you soon.